Have you ever had it where you're just playing through Halo, living your best life, and then all of a sudden something happens and the game just has you locked out of what you're supposed to do? Well, we've had it happen to us a lot. It's honestly this really weird situation where the game just doesn't know what to do, and it results in sometimes you getting stuck and having to restart the mission. And these have been prevalent across all of the Halo games, so we wanted to look at some of our favorites that were soft locks. So let's go ahead and jump into this. But first, have you ever wondered what if Master Chief and the Arbiter wanted to start an escape room business and they needed a website to promote their different themed escape rooms? Well, they probably would use Squarespace, which actually is the sponsor of this video. They're definitely the best website building tool out there, but we'll talk more about Squarespace later on in this video. Starting off, Halo Combat Evolved. This one is my favorite because it's so pointless, but essentially if you hold down the enter vehicle button at the very beginning of the level, you'll actually stay inside of the Pelican and you can go on this long ride all the way to the bottom of this pit for whatever reason. And whether you live or die here, it's definitely up in the air. There's weird death barriers, there's weird physics. If you're co-op, if you're solo, things can happen differently, but in the odd case that you do survive and not get killed by something randomly, you can get stuck down here and you're just in this pit. There's not too much going on. You can flip the Pelican. There's some grunts that are dead down here sometimes. Yeah, good way to introduce this video topic. Okay, going on to the Maw for Halo Combat Evolved. If you actually get into the elevator too early or too quickly, you can put yourself below the elevator and make it leave without you, which kind of just gets you stuck in this limbo state where you're supposed to be making this mad epic drive out of the Maw, and instead you're just stuck down here trying to live your best life, I guess. I don't know. This one's really awkward to get stuck in. Okay, on the level Metropolis in Halo 2, if you're moving too quickly in this level and you hit a load at a specific second, you can actually cause the Scarab to deload and not load back in where it's supposed to, thus locking you in Metropolis at the end of the level without the Scarab ever showing up for you to defeat it once and for all. Also on the level the Oracle, if you do that super cool invincibility glitch, which we've done in our lasso runs, we've done it in our speedrunning runs as well. If you're not careful and you don't time your jump back correctly, either you take too long when you're cutting the cable or you jump too early, you can cause the game to soft lock in two different ways, but mostly the end result is you just getting locked up out of the map in this limbo area because there's just nothing left. Okay, and this next one is really pointless, but I wanted to include it. On Delta Halo, if you have the Feather Skull on and you decide to go exploring way outside of the map and you go all the way down to where the regret level takes place, you can go under the water and make your way all the way to where the underwater elevator is. Yes, for whatever reason, there is still like the opening on the structure on this version of the level as well. You can then bounce yourself up there using the Feather Skull and land on one of the ledges up here underneath the elevator. Really cool. I was really excited that I made my way up here until we realized that not only is there a death barrier in one of the corners of the elevator, but there's no way down. You can't drop down because you'll fall to your death because of how high up you are, and there's nowhere else you can go but to the death barrier. Definitely a little bit of a unique situation, but interesting nonetheless. Jumping forward to Halo 3 on Sierra 117, if you go forward into the level where these Pelicans crash and then you backtrack a bit, hitting a previous loading sequence, and then you move forward again, hitting another loading sequence, you can actually cause the game to glitch out here and essentially have this blur effect in the area where you're supposed to go. For whatever reason, we loaded and unloaded a section of the level, but the game already thinks that it had properly loaded in the sequence afterwards in order, so it's not trying to load it in again, but we're still stuck here in the previous load. It's kind of weird, and it's happened to some players accidentally in the past, but it's just one of those ones that's really easy to pull off, so we wanted to talk about it here. Going into the Storm, when you get to the Scarab fight, you can actually hit the loading sequence from before by clipping into the door with a mongoose, and because of this, the Scarab will despawn and you can't actually progress. Matter of fact, if you walk back through the door you're usually supposed to go to, it's just a smear texter in the skybox from behind the building. It's definitely a little bit of an awkward situation. This next one, we've talked about it before, but it's just one of these hilarious situations. But on the Ark, if you board the Scarab too quickly, either by doing some quick parkour or if you use the Acrophobia Skull and you ride the Scarab out of bounds and then kill the Scarab while you're out of bounds, not only will the Scarab be destroyed and the leg start glitching out like it has a life of its own and it personally targets me every time. But also, if you go back into the level, you're soft locked. Yeah, there's really nothing you can do here. You're kind of stuck. Actually, also on this level, if you have the Acrophobia Skull on and you fly outside the cliff and back in, skipping a loading sequence, you can fly over to the big open canyon area where you would do most of the level stuff, except nothing will be loaded in and the door will lock behind you, thus soft locking you in a much larger area with literally no way to fix it. Okay, we've run into soft locks on this level so many times when we were doing the time travel stuff, trying to figure out if we could beat the Covenant without a Hornet, which actually were able to pull off. But there's so many different things that you can do, especially with Acrophobia Skull, where you just get to this area way too early, whether you're just flying on early on in the level or later on when you activate the tower, flying through the broken window. If you go here too early, a lot of the times you can get stuck. There is a way you can hit a certain loading sequence in order and not completely mess it up, but for the most part, we seem to always get stuck here. Matter of fact, if we're going to include the Acrophobia Skull in this one, there's been multiple occurrences where Luke and I have gotten stuck in those brute tower rooms because of the Acrophobia Skull and us flying up too early, locking ourselves down, locking ourselves up, and just a lot of weird stuff that's happened where we've managed to just get stuck in that room without any way out or any way for the button to spawn in that we need to, and no way to go back down and hit the loading sequence. So always be careful of this level because it's kind of like a prison at times. And then on the level Halo, this was one of the first ones we discovered recently with the Acrophobia Skull. We had so much fun with it because it's absolutely pointless, but if you fly right into the level and you go into the little room that Johnson comes out of, where you would normally later in the level go forward, the door will actually close and lock on both sides, and you're just in one of the smallest rooms possible with nowhere else to go except you and your thoughts. And last checkpoint reverting. Okay, there's a few more that are really, really awesome, but first we just wanted to give a quick thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. As we said earlier, Squarespace is the easiest to use website building and hosting platform that has tons of features provided in one really easy to use online tool. Want to make your website look the best that it could be? Squarespace makes it super easy to pick from their many categories of templates that are all unique and really clean. And with their customization tool, you can even change a small detail about your website, like the color scheme, layout, animations, fonts, and much more. And however you're trying to make your website look, you can pull it off and it's going to look great. It doesn't matter if you're trying to make a website for a podcast, an online shop, a blog, or anything else, Squarespace will have the perfect variety of designs for your needs. And once you have your website all set up, you can easily schedule posts so you can have them go up at the perfect times of the day. You can enable a comment feature as well on your posts, so you can even interact with your own community that you grow through your website. And definitely to top it off, Squarespace offers one of the best analytics tools that lets you learn even more about your website data, like where people visit your website from, what times your website has the most traffic, and even what content people click on the most. Squarespace provides you with anything you want to know about your website, and it even gets better. If you set up your website and you really want to make it stand out, you can integrate a domain you already own or purchase a domain right through the Squarespace platform, and they make it really easy to do. So if you're ready to purchase a domain and sign up for Squarespace, go to squarespace.com/rocketsloth and get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using code ROCKETSLOTH. Okay, let's break Halo a little bit more. Jumping to Halo 3 ODST, there's a lot of different places you can get stuck on. Mombasa streets, you can go out of the map with a mongoose, drive around outside, hit a loading sequence which just deloads all of Mombasa streets. You can't get back to the map, which is a big RIP there. On Kazingo Boulevard, there's a point where you can push a tank over the barrier with another tank, and then you can use the tank to drive forward. Now, we were doing this glitch one time when we were just playing for fun, but for whatever reason, I stayed a little bit behind further accidentally, and then Dim and Luke died and spawned on me, but all of a sudden it did a loading sequence and I was inside the door and I couldn't get out, and then Luke and Dim were somewhere else and they were also stuck and maybe dead at times. It was really weird, but we had soft locked the game accidentally by doing a glitch that we probably shouldn't have been doing anyways. On NMPD HQ, this one's really simple, but our friend Zombie showed it to us, but if you kill the last Phantom too quickly, the level won't end and you're just stuck there on that helicopter waiting to be saved forever. On the level Data Hive, if one person stays out of a door and then the rest loads the next part in, when the door closes and the person walks back, there'll be this smear texture and another loading area you can't open again, much like what we would run into with that earlier Halo 3 one on Sierra 117, except this time we're ODSTs. Then on Coastal Highway, during the final fight, the second Phantom flies in, and if you kill most of the enemies before they hit the ground, the next wave will either just bring in one hunter or no hunters at all. But the game wants you to kill 2 hunters to progress. So because of you killing these enemies too quickly, and the game doesn't want to bring in both hunters, they'll softlock, no more waves will come in, the music just stops abruptly, and you're awkwardly stuck in Coastal Highway forever. Next, we were jumping to Reach, and we had a couple of these happen all across the board, but on Winter Contingency, we had our buddy Jangoose just flying us through some shortcuts, and Luke and I had this moment where we got stuck outside of the fence, and apparently if everyone dies and respawns on us and we're stuck outside of the fence, it means we're all stuck out of the fence, and there's nothing we could do about it there. So that might have happened to us. On one of the runs, we were playing on Sword Base, and we were blowing a bunch of stuff up, and it ended up yeeting a skirmisher completely outside of the map, and the door wouldn't open up because the game knew there was a skirmisher still alive. Unfortunately for us, we eventually threw a grenade where we thought maybe a skirmisher might have went, and we got the kill, and we were able to progress. But if you're doing a lasso or something, and that skirmisher went missing and flew anywhere else, you're stuck here without much to do. Also, on Oni Sword Base, if you ram the ghost over the barricades, when you're going back into the base and you reach the hunters too quickly, you'll actually make the hunters invincible for whatever reason, which is terrifying and frustrating if you're just trying to do your thing. Going into Halo 4, on the level Reclaimer, you can actually deload the mammoth, which will completely lock your game, which is essentially if you progress with the mission too fast, hit a loading zone, it'll make the mammoth fall through the map, making it impossible to end the mission, and definitely unexpected if you didn't know that that could happen. And real quick, while we're mostly focusing on campaign, I was playing a Spartan Ops level, and I got so frustrated because I'm going for the legendary solo achievement, which is just awful in itself, but there was a moment where one of the elites I was supposed to kill went flying when I shot him with a rocket launcher and landed up on the cliffs somewhere up here. This is just a recreation showing where it happened, and it was so frustrating because he was the last elite I needed to kill to beat it after spending about 30 to 45 minutes on this level, and I could not get an angle on him for the life of me. He fell in some random little crack between 3 rocks, and I couldn't lob any grenades up there to kill him. I couldn't do anything, and I ended up having to reset, and I'm still mad about this months later that I included it in this outline. Going forward to Halo 5 on Blue Team, we head jumped out of bounds, and I skipped over a load, and the rest of the mission ended up not being playable, so this one was kind of interesting, I guess. And then on Battle of Sanayon, I did this trick jump to fit between death barriers, causing the next part of the mission to load too quickly. And then when you progress too far, you end up getting killed by a death barrier. But nonetheless, these are some of the more interesting deloads and loading effects or soft locks we ran into when we were just trying to break Halo a little bit more than usual. But hey, if you guys like this video, make sure you guys subscribe with notifications on for more videos like this so you actually get notified whenever we actually put out content.
And make sure to check out our live streams at twitch.tv/RocketSlothYT. We stream there twice a week, sometimes even more.
And sometimes even less.